today I'm going to talk about Jesus' parable of the yeast. In this parable, Jesus likens the kingdom of God to being like yeast that has been mixed with flour and set to leaven overnight. Leaven means to raise. And yeast is used in bread making in that way. Here's some bread dough. This sample of bread dough contains yeast, and this one over here does not. Can you see in the yeast sample how it's doubled in size? Because the yeast has made it grow and get bigger, whereas the one without yeast doesn't grow in size. How does yeast do that? Well, yeast is a single-cell organism that in the presence of warmth and flour can grow and produce carbon dioxide gas. And the carbon dioxide gas creates little tiny bubbles, and those bubbles get trapped in the dough and create little holes in bread. And as you can see here in the sample, see those little holes? They're created by carbon dioxide gas. It makes our bread very light and fluffy. This parable by Jesus reminds us then that yeast, here's some yeast powder, which is very small, can do powerful things. It can make yeast rise and get light and fluff, make bread light and fluffy. So we are called also to create the kingdom of God, even though we feel kind of small. We can do that by doing good things. I have a science experiment for you to do so you can see the power of yeast firsthand. For this science experiment, you will need yeast, hydrogen peroxide, dish soap, a bottle, or you could just use a tall glass, a funnel, and safety goggles, just in case any splashes near your eyes. I'm going to use also a small plastic tray to protect my table surface. So to do the experiment, the first step is to add the hydrogen peroxide to the bottle using the funnel. So I'm going to go ahead and pour the hydrogen peroxide into the funnel until it has a height of about 1 inch. Next, I'm going to add a couple drops of dish soap. And next, I'm going to put yeast in. I'm actually going to put about a teaspoon of yeast. I'm just using a small plastic spoon here. I'm going to go ahead and put in the yeast. The yeast is sitting on top of the hydrogen peroxide. To get it to mix in, do a swirl, which is a gentle rotation of the bottle. Once the yeast is mixed in, you will see all this foaming action. Look at that, it's rising. What is happening here is the yeast is causing the hydrogen peroxide to break down, and it's creating oxygen gas. This reaction is a little bit different than what yeast does with rising bread. It's creating a different gas here, it's oxygen gas. And we put the dish soap in because it's allowing us to see that creation of the gas. And look at what happens when we get to the top. That foam, which the dish soap creates, has got all of this happiness coming over. And you'll also notice the bottle's getting a little bit warm from the chemical reaction. How cool is that? Yeast here is creating all this powerful foaming action. And so as you see this, think about yourself. You may seem like you're small, like tiny granules of yeast, but you can do things that can make change and have a lot of power, just like yeast does. So thank you for listening to this lesson. Good luck with your experiment. God bless.